Good morning, everyone. We're going to give it a couple minutes and wait for the other participants to join, and then we'll get started. Morning, everyone who just joined. We're going to give it just a couple more minutes here and make sure that everyone has a chance to join the call, and we'll get started. All right. Why don't we go ahead and get started, and everyone else who registered for the webinar can trickle in as we start the presentation. Good morning, everyone. My name is Elise Oliver, and I'm the Director of Programs for WSADA, overseeing the Export Education, Global Connect, and Fund Match programs. Everyone joining today, our webinar focused on wine, spirits, and other alcohol products exporting to Canada. We hope you guys find it valuable. We partnered with Bryant Christie Inc., who will be sharing a presentation today, and we also have a guest from Lakefront Brewery who will be providing insights on their experience exporting to Canada. So with that, Nigel, I will turn it to you.
All right. Already got one of my top fears of being muted while talking out of the way. Hello, everyone. It's very nice to meet you. My name is Nigel Quinn. I am a marketing manager at Bryant Christie Incorporated, and I've been asked to speak a little bit about the wine, spirits, and beer market in Canada and exports there and how they have changed over the last 6 or so months. I just wanted to give you guys a brief overview of what we're going to be talking about today. We'll finish up our introductions. Then we'll kind of take a close look at Canada's alcohol import system and their monopoly system that they use for retail. Then we'll tackle the elephant in the room and discuss the changes that have occurred in the last 6 months. Finally, we'll do a brief overview of kind of recent consumer trends and how that may or may not be working in your favor for more opportunities. And then finally, we'll have Andrew from Lakefront Brewing come in and share his experience as well, followed up by a quick Q&A and some next steps and how to further engage with the program. All right, great. Now, I'm sure the top question in most of your mind is, who am I and why have I been asked to give this presentation? So a little bit of background on me. I've been with Bryant Christie for about 3 years. And in that time, I have worked very closely with some of our wine-based clients. That includes the wine organizations from Washington State, Oregon, and New York, all of which are very involved in the Canadian market. It is their largest market across the board. But before I get to that, I've also had the chance at BCI to work in kind of the packaged products sector as well, worked with pet food and popcorn as well. Let me tell you, great combination of products there. Wine, pet food, and popcorn. Try it all in a night. You and your cat will have a great time. Great. So, also during my time here, I've here at Bryant Christie, I've had the opportunity to get certified as via the Wine and Spirits Educational Trust. It's a it's an educational thing focused on wine, specifically in my case, that kind of takes you through all of the regions, which has really helped me to expand my wine background and be able to have more in-depth conversations with producers. So I just wanted to say that for everybody on the call who may not be specifically from the wine industry. I'm definitely, majority of my experience has been in wine, but I've also talked with other folks on our team that do work with spirits and beer as well, so that we can give you a more full snapshot. Uh, my time since I've been at BCI, I've had the chance to travel to Canada to help sponsor. There's both of these pictures here on the screen. The one on the far right was in Quebec after a long day of trade tasting. I was all uh, decked out in swag and very happy to not be pouring wine anymore, which was great. And then finally, the main picture that I have here is from the Vancouver International Wine Festival. It's a large trade show they have in Vancouver, BC, every year. This year happened to fall at a very turbulent point. The United States was the region of honor at the show. So California, New York, Washington, and Oregon were all displayed and had their wines, had pretty much half of the tasting floor there. And this happened, and the show wrapped up 2 days before all of the changes that we will go into much greater detail later in the presentation on occurred. So they had been announced, but they were on a holding pattern during this show. So it was kind of the calm right before the storm fully hit. So I feel like that's one of the main reasons as to why I was asked, because I was there as it was happening, and I feel like that gives me a little bit of insight. But without further delay, let's get down to the meat and potatoes, or the wine and beer, depending on your preference. We just wanted to kind of, before we really dive into the changes, we kind of wanted to give you a good overview of where the alcohol export market in Canada has been over the last couple of years. You'll see here we have wine and beer. This is exports by volume from the U.S. with beer in blue and wine in green. I just wanted to flag that kind of the main influence during the period displayed here has really been as was COVID and the COVID era disruptions of the closure of restaurants and the reliance of kind of at-home drinking as well. As you can see, there was a variety of factors. You can see beer spiked back up in 2022 as as people in the business say, on-premise or restaurant and bar locations reopened following the end of the the end of the disruptions, whereas wine really benefited from kind of the closure of those things and a rise in at-home drinking during the beginning of the pandemic, and suffered a little bit once people got back out into the world. But happy to report that there was a little bit of an increase in between 2023 and 2024. Now, you might be noticing, hey, this ends in 2024. Where is that 2025 data? I just wanted to call that out as the data source that we pull from is Trade Data Monitor, and that's updated on a rolling basis. So basically, any information that we give you for the 2025 year will be likely inaccurate or outdated by the time you guys receive these slides after the presentation. However, from both anecdotal accounts and from a Wall Street Journal article that was published last week, these numbers are way down in 2025 due to a lack of market access for U.S. alcohol products. But we will definitely get into that much later, so no worries. I just wanted to call out that that is not there. Also missing, you may have noticed, was spirits. Unfortunately, because spirits is a much lower volume commodity, the initial draft we had of that chart showed spirits as a solid line on the bottom, and we didn't want to do them dirty like that, so we decided to pull it out and have it as its own graph. Some things I wanted to call out is that similar to beer and wine, Canada is the largest export market for U.S. spirits. They and although they are a lower volume, that does not diminish their value. So in 2022, the recent peak that we can see here, that was estimated to be valued at around 260 million US dollars. So even though they're not exporting quite as much on a liter basis, they still make quite a lot of money for their producers through export. Now, there's a lot of there might be some questions as to why these numbers in recent years. We'll definitely touch on that more in the consumer section later at the end of the presentation. But just know that it's kind of a confluence of factors. People are drinking less, and there is very stiff competition in the spirits industry from Canadian spirits companies who, thanks to how their system is set up, do tend to receive preferential treatment and pricing in comparison to their U.S. counterparts. All right, great. So before we fully dive into the changes, I think it's very important to kind of set the stage and understand how the system works, kind of what the expectations that producers should have going into the market under normal circumstances would be, just so that we can really understand and fully grasp the full impact of those recent changes. All right. So the most important thing to know about Canada is that it is mostly dominated by provincial liquor control boards. These are government entities that control all import distribution and sales. They will have hundreds of retail store locations throughout cities, towns, and in rural areas around the province which they represent. Now, this is true across the board in your major population centers like Ontario, Quebec, and British Columbia. The only exception to the rule is Alberta. They operate on a fully privatized free market system. So we will touch on that again. I just wanted to call out who they are. Unfortunately, being in the business, I have a habit of using acronyms, so apologies if I'm using too many acronyms, but just some important ones to know. The Liquor Control Board of Ontario, or LCBO, it's the single largest alcohol purchaser on Earth, given the size of the population that it represents and its budget. There's the SAQ, or Société d'Alcool du Québec. Apologies to all French speakers on Earth for that horrible pronunciation. I do my best, so I will probably be referring to them as the SAQ just for the sake of your ears. And then finally is the BCLDB, or British Columbia Liquor Distribution Branch. So I just As you can see through their key responsibilities, they are involved at every step of the process, from initial sourcing of products all the way through the final sale to the consumer. And I wanted to kind of call out and put this into context. So for a producer, the main person that they will be interacting with is usually a category buyer that is responsible not just for the US, but possibly a much wider section. They buy all of the wine in my experience for all of the New World. So that's Australia, the US, New Zealand, South Africa, and South America. So there's one person who is responsible for purchasing a wide range of products. They do this through a system, through a tender system where they will release kind of the specs of the wines that excuse me, of the alcohol products that they're interested in, that will kind of lay out technical specifications, price, etc. And then uh, anyone who is interested or has a product that meets those qualifications can then submit products for consideration and possible purchase. Um, as you'll notice as we go through this particular section, it's a very competitive process. Additionally, there's lots and lots of requirements, both from on the provincial level and at the federal level, when it comes to labels and making sure that you follow all of the rules. So I would say the main takeaway is, in order for producers to get the most out of the liquor control boards, really identifying and cultivating a good relationship with an importer agent based in Canada who works with these organizations on a regular basis is crucial. Without doing so, there's really it's such a big ask for those folks to navigate these systems. So finding and identifying a importer agent is the most important first step if someone is looking to engage with this system, especially as it tends to fluctuate as it has recently. All right, moving on. Inside the monopoly system, there are three main channels through which importation can go through. The first is a general listing. This is kind of the golden goose, and there is a myriad of complexity under each of these three. But under the general general listings, there are two main portions. There is the general list, excuse me, and then there are collections as well. So the general list is kind of the largest, widest distribution. Uh, this is mainly for products that can be purchased for maybe a lower price, but a very high volume so that they can be stocked in every store across the province. Uh, Another thing to know about the general list is that it can turn over if a product is unable to demonstrate kind of continued sell through. So in addition to being the most competitive place to enter the market, it is also one of the most difficult places to maintain after you've secured that listing, because you need to continually be showing a solid ROI for the control boards. Uh, there is another alternative to this, which is still in the general list. These are, I call them collections. Depending on what board you're working with, they can be called a vintage collection or a region collection. Then these will be focused on specific wines. They'll be more focused. Usually they're a one-time purchase. Their distribution is more limited to like top-selling stores that have a wider variety in them, that are kind of more bespoke to to more artisanal consumers. Yeah. If, the next main list is consignment. Now, this is if you can get a listing at, say, a restaurant or an event or a bar, and these are still run very much through the liquor control boards. You're importing through the control board, and you are need to follow all of their regulations and rules in order to enter the market. However, this is a much lower barrier for entry. Usually this can be done on a more standard agent to vendor basis. So there's less of, it's a lot easier for folks to get their products in the market and get an established audience, which will help them to, if the goal is to get onto that general list. The consignment is really a good first step for building up a following amongst consumers. The final channel is the private orders. Now, these are the smallest volumes we're talking about here. They're not for use or resale at basically anywhere except for restaurants. And I would recommend that if you have never had any products in the Canadian market, the private order channel is the best way to get that first set in so that you can engage with the trade in hopes to secure a consignment listing. And basically, our recommendation would be to work with through private to consignment to the general list if that is the goal. All right. As with all things Canada, there is lots of variation on a province by province basis. We've touched on the top three here, Ontario, Quebec, and British Columbia. But something I wanted to call out in this retail model is there have been calls to change this system even before the recent changes. Ontario, in 2024 opened up limited sales of beer and wine in private grocery stores. Now this rollout is still ongoing, and we don't know the final implementation of it. But to be listed in these stores, you need to be on that highest tier general list that I was discussing earlier. So you need to have a large amount of volume with the LCBO in order to export there. And the LCBO is very involved in that process as well. So even though there are some private final sale destinations, it is still dealing primarily with the monopoly. Quebec, it is a French-speaking province, so the main thing to flag there is you really need to make sure all of your labeling meets bilingual requirements, and everything except for trademarks is in French. British Columbia is a little bit more unique in comparison. It runs a hybrid system where there is the BCLDB, which handles many stores, but there's also a solid private retailer sector. Something important to know about British Columbia and Western Canada in general is that these private retailers operate throughout a majority of the Western Canada. So the same companies will have a presence in British Columbia as well as Alberta and Yukon. And then finally, there are many smaller provinces out east and territories up north. These tend to fluctuate in between a government-only monopoly and a hybrid model. However, given the very small populations in these areas, many producers tend not to pursue and do dedicated promotions in these regions, just that the population is so small and the ROI might not be fully worth it. All right, great. And as a reminder, each province and each liquor board will have their own rules and regulations. So as you looking to expand in Canada beyond wherever you initially start, it's important to make sure that your agents are aware and have previously worked in the newer markets, because they might not be as familiar with the rules. All right. So in addition to the provincial system, if we take a step back, there are also federal requirements. And I just kind of wanted to highlight the three main institutions at the federal level that you'll encounter if you're exporting alcohol products to Canada. The first is Health Canada. Now, this is basically their version of the FDA. They're the ones that set the rules on what additives are allowed or not allowed. They also will set the rules for the labels as well. Then the next is the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, or CFIA. These are the folks that oversee the implementation to ensure that imported products meet the required rules that are set down by Health Canada. We'll go into much more detail here in a slide or two on what they're verifying, but just know that that's the institution that is making that double check. they're making those checks. And then finally, there's the Canada Revenue Agency. They're the ones that will impose all duties and all duties and taxes on your product as it enters into the Canadian market at port. So the tariffs that you have undoubtedly heard about, and we'll get to those, are imposed by this revenue agency. All right, speeding up a little bit, we want to kind of briefly touch on the labeling requirement. Some of the main things that I wanted to call out is the quantity. They use the metric system. Also, something that has definitely came through in our research is using standard amounts. So 350 milliliter can for beer, a 750 milliliter bottle for wine will help you because then that will meet both the tenders of the alcohol monopolies, but also make customs a more smooth experience. Not finally, excuse me. Next is ABV. For this, they allow up to a 0.05% deviation from the stated listed amount across all alcohol products, which is more stringent than it is here in the United States. Here in the States, it can be up to 1%, sometimes up to 1.5, depending on the level of alcohol that you have. But I would just say on this point, we highly recommend that you make sure that you're as accurate as possible on your ABV. For the allergens, uh, these are required declarations, and this is something that you should definitely be consulting with your agents as soon as possible, just so that you can make sure that that is called out in multiple languages on your bottling. Uh, Great. And then hopping over to the bilingual requirements. This is mandatory in English and French. So not necessarily for trademarks, but it is for all of the labels and ingredients, etc. So basically, anything consumer facing on your product will need to be in both languages, regardless of whether it's being imported to Quebec or elsewhere. Finally, these category-specific considerations, we included these here where if you include that your product is beer or it's a spirit, specific spirit, or if it's wine, this will allow you to bypass listing every single ingredient that is included on the bottle, as long as it doesn't fall into what they consider like an unstandardized alcohol format. And once again, to ensure that you don't do that, please consult with an agent who deals with this on a regular basis. That's why our top best practice is to work with your agent to make sure that you're meeting all of these requirements and ensure that they are checking and updating you on a regular basis, because these rules can change and you don't want to get your stuff stuck at customs and unable to make it all the way to the store shelves. Great. Uh, Now that we have kind of this, we have a good background on what's happening in the market, let's get into the changes that have happened in the last 6 months. They have been quite extensive, and they will have a big impact both on the short-term viability of export for many U.S. alcohol producers and in the long term for the Canadian market. So, jumping in, the first and most pressing change since March 4th of 2025, in response to tariffs announced by the U.S. government, U.S. alcohol products have been pulled from the retail shelves in Ontario, Quebec, BC, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, Newfoundland, and Yukon. They were also pulled initially from Saskatchewan, and however, that was rolled back in early June. This means that the liquor boards are not purchasing any new U.S. alcohol products, uh, and they are having to hold on to their previously purchased inventory at their own expense without being able to sell them going forward. And as of this morning, this stands and has not changed. It's also important to know that because so much of the retail landscape is controlled by these government monopolies, these decisions were not made by the monopolies. These decisions were made at the premier level, and due to the parliamentary systems in place at most of these Canadian provinces, the premier has significantly more power than a U.S. state governor for example. So that means it's really going to come down to the premiers across the board. Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, has been leading the charge in this particular move. And until they feel that the trade negotiations have reached a satisfactory place, or the pressure has reached an untenable point, this is unlikely to change. So just wanted to state that. In addition to removing, in addition to removing alcohol products from shelves, a 25% tariff was placed on all on all U.S. alcohol products. Now, I referenced a Wall Street Journal article from last week, and in that article, they cited that there has already been a 65% drop in U.S. spirit sales from the shelves and the removals compared to this time last year, and that is for the first 6 months of 2025. Moving on, some other tariff-related issues to keep in mind. There are U.S. steel and aluminum tariffs that are also in place from the Canadian government, which affect beer cans and will raise the cost for packaging for producers. Finally, there has been threats of further increases to the tariffs, and we just wanted to call that out just to say that the negotiations are still ongoing, and it may be a while before all of this is fully resolved. But fingers crossed that when it is, it will be in our favor, and some of the more protectionist policies that had existed beforehand will be resolved. But at this point on August 20th, 2025, that is still a ways out. Another important point to bring up in regards to these changes is there was a memorandum of understanding signed in May, and this is designed to allow greater inter-provincial commerce, so easier to export and move goods in between the provinces. The example that I have heard of this is because they're not allowed to sell U.S. alcohol products in British Columbia, companies that have presence in both British Columbia and Alberta, where it is allowed, have started moving a large amount of their stock into Alberta so that they can get rid of that stock in a province where it is allowed. It's also important to note that this has wide public support at around 60%, which are uh, in favor of these rules and conditions. So that is kind of the market as it stands. I also kind of wanted to go over the timeline just so that we understand how these things have kind of rolled out. February 1st was when the tariffs on Canada were first announced at 25%. They was then put on hold for a little over a month before they went into full effect on March 4th. If anybody is interested, I was in Vancouver on February 28th to March 2nd. So we weren't sure if it was going to be completely resolved in that time. And spoilers, it was not. So that was an interesting time to be in the market for sure, especially since the point of the show was to highlight U.S. wine. Finally, excuse me, not finally, keep saying finally, we'll get there eventually. Apologies, everyone. On April 9th, there was an escalation of the retaliation, followed on June 9th between the direct-to-consumer alcohol sales across the 9 provinces. This is mainly designed to benefit Canadian alcohol producers, excuse me, who had previously not been able to engage in this sales channel beforehand, and in the time since have really been able to capture a wider representation, both in their direct-to-consumer shipments, but also on monopoly shelves in the absence of U.S. alcohol products. Most recently, there has been that proposal that I mentioned of a 35% tariff, which definitely means that we're not out of the woods yet, and this will be an ongoing issue as we go. All right, moving on. Let's briefly touch on how best to navigate these tariffs and changes as they happen. Um, Canada is not going away. It has been the largest market for U.S. alcohol products for many years for good reason. It's geographically very close. The Even though there has been a little bit of protectionism, it's a very easy starting market for smaller producers, especially to test the waters of export and see if it's something that they want to invest in. I'm sure we'll hear more about that later. Uh, but That said, it's a close market that's culturally aligned with us, and they do drink, and they are highly reliant on imports. This is across all categories, from their wine to their spirits to their beer. They're all they don't for their population, and U.S. products have invested a lot the previous years to build up relationships with those Canadian consumers so that they go to U.S. products first. And that is another bigger change. There has been a swell in anti-U.S. sentiment among Canadian consumers as a result of these changes and the political situation. And it's just to know that once the market does reopen, there will be a large hill to surmount in order to address those concerns and bring Canadian consumers back into the U.S. Alcohol sector. Uh, looking forward, uh, we think that one of the main recommendations we can say is to maintain your relationships with your agencies and with your importers. As soon as the market reopens, they will be the people on the front lines, negotiating with the monopolies and helping you to navigate the changes, whatever they may be in regulations and entry requirements. Another, and we'll get way more into this in the next section, but also now is a good time to take stock and see what Canadian consumers prefer, what their motivations are for purchasing alcohol products, and it might be an excellent time to kind of reevaluate your strategy to align more with consumer preferences. Speaking of which, let's talk about what Canadian consumers really want. Now, I'm sure this is not breaking news to anyone who's in the alcohol sector here, but there has been around the globe an uptick in health consciousness, exacerbated greatly by the COVID-19 pandemic, and this has been especially felt amongst younger consumers. And this has really shown itself in two ways in the alcohol sector. The first is lower consumption overall amongst younger consumers and more mindful consumption. Now that could look in a variety of different, that can show itself in a variety of different ways. Mindfulness, it can be the quality, how sustainably produced something is, and or mainly how unique a brand is when it's sitting on a store shelf. Another large impact has been the rise in non-alcoholic drinks, such as non-alcoholic beer, non-alcoholic wines, which are produced by the same sector here in the U.S. It has been a way to kind of continue to engage with these consumers who are abstaining from drinking alcohol for health uh, concerns. One thing we want to call out when it comes to these non-alcoholic drinks is that there's extremely strict uh, ABV requirements in order to classify yourself as non-alcoholic. That is 0.05% ABV at max. Additionally, we're not allowed to make any health claims for that, oh, non-alcoholic, insert product name here is better for you. So we're not allowed to make any of those claims in any of our marketing, and any bilingual requirements are still very much in effect. However, this does, I think, create great opportunity for U.S. exporters, especially those that are focused in these sectors of low to no alcohol products, and will be an area of great expansion once we're allowed back into the market. As another result of this drinking less has been a rise in premiumization. It's a much easier word to type than to say, I will say. And this is basically boils down to consumers are willing to pay a little bit more to drink something of a better quality. This is a great opportunity for U.S. alcohol producers across the board, especially those that make smaller, more unique and artisanal products, because that is what the consumers have been flocking towards in lieu of your kind of large, mainline, very popular, high volume products. Another thing that we wanted to really call out here on this slide is the how effective storytelling and story-driven marketing has been for Canadian consumers. They really respond well to learning more about who are the people behind the products. Why do you make the products the way that you do? What is the unique twist that makes your production yours? And really kind of centering the people and the culture and the story more so, in addition to price and all of these other things, as there's been a lot of response from Canadian consumers on this with this approach. Additionally, another thing to consider when engaging both with Canadian consumers and the monopolies themselves is how is this story being communicated to your consumers? There are those large, famous, basically, category buyers who will make the final decision on what is on the shelf and what is not. But in the conversion rate for consumers for actually picking up those wines, engaging and educating with your on-the-floor monopoly staff members, giving them an overview of your product or an overview of your region in order to so that they can pass that story on to their consumers has been a great way. It's not quite as effective as word of mouth from consumers' friends, so to speak, but it is something where they can get that story and be able to provide a lot more information that might meet the consumer's needs here. So emphasis on storytelling and emphasis on making sure the folks that are directly selling your products understand your story. All right. Another big change in recent years has been the rise in ready-to-drink cocktails or RTDs. They're more than just cocktails, but I'm sure most of you are aware of what they are. They are easily the fastest growing segment in the Canadian market, and they have been taking up more and more shelf space. But however, as a result of that, this is not just great news for RTD producers specifically, because it is a highly volatile market where there is high turnover, bringing in new brands and new products. So, and there has been a preference amongst Canadian consumers to buy Canadian and go towards Canadian produced ready to drink cocktails. Uh, Another thing that these drinks will align with is that they're convenient. They allow greater portion control given the lack of size. And I know I don't have to tell this to the other categories like wine and beer, because they're in direct competition with each other. But just wanted to call this out, as this has been one of the most popular products amongst Canadian consumers in recent years. Uh, Finally, we wanted to, or not finally, excuse me, two slides left, so we're wrapping up here shortly. There has also been changes in product formats with an emphasis really on portion control. That's been amongst cans in the traditional categories, but as well in wines as well for their in addition to the portion control, there's also a sustainability and a recyclability to cans and bottles that really resonates with consumers, because Canadian consumers especially have shown a preference for that in the products that they consume. There have been newer and emerging formats similar to bag and box and the Tetra Packs. It's definitely something where, because the monopoly is very clear in their tenders as to what counts for each, uh, if you are experimenting with new packaging product formats, it's always good to triple check on the tenders and make sure that your products will fit what they're looking for. And there has been more and more shelf space dedicated to unique uh, unique packaging options in recent years. So always make sure that you and your agent are reviewing these tenders very thoroughly, and that you know where the opportunities are and where they may not be. All right. Finally, another big thing to understand is that Canadians are very much used to paying a lot more than US consumers for their alcohol. But this does not directly translate to higher profits on the part of the US producer, mainly because a lot of that additional cost comes in through the uh, the provincial monopolies, fees, taxes, etc. So you guys will receive these slides after the fact, and I think a lot of this information is more accessible when read, when read as compared to having me read it out loud to you. So I'd say definitely take a good look at this slide after the fact and familiarize yourself with it. All right, now I will pass this over to Andrew uh, from excuse me, my bad, from Lakefront Brewing. A little bit of background on him. As he said, he's been the export manager there for about 10 years. Canada is one of the Lakefront Brewing's main markets. And Andrew, take it away from here.
Hello, all. Thanks, Nigel. Thanks for inviting me to participate in this. Thanks for everyone for tuning in. So I'll try to stick to the points here. I might go off on a couple of tangents, and you can ask me some questions afterwards, I believe. So I'll start with our story. Lakefront Brewery is one of the first 100 craft breweries in America, founded back in 1987 by two home brewing brothers. Same story as many other startups back then. They scaled up their scrap homebrew system to a scrap brewery, brewing primarily lagers in the beginning, moved on to ales. Lagers are very popular in Milwaukee, so around the chimney, that's where our sales demanded. So eventually we went the way of the consumers, started making ales. We brew about 30 plus different full-scale year-round and seasonal releases every year, including NA, and we're pushing into a Delta 9 product, staying competitive in this landscape. And we pioneering gluten-free product, which I'll get to. We have a strong tourist destination tap room, popular brewery tours. I'm trying to talk too fast here. We have a beer hall restaurant, yada yada. We've hovered between about 30 to 45,000 barrels in the past decade or so. So in 2005, we heard that a local specialty malter, Breeze Malting, was processing and sourcing sorghum and rice syrup for other industries, in addition to their malt extracts. Our head brewer's father happened to have celiac disease, so we knew it was becoming better understood as a serious autoimmune disorder, and those people couldn't drink beer. So it was a serendipitous opportunity for us to brew the nation's first commercial gluten-free beer, Nuglit, which is called Nugrist Pilsner. And that became a more and more popular product around here. That was around 2005. So let's get to how we found a Canadian partner. Canada chose us because as that product started to grow, become more popular here, they caught wind that we were producing it and celiac safe. So we got a call from an agent, our owner. Now I've been export manager for 10 years. This was quite a while ago. I know the story, but it's not firsthand experience. So we got a call from this agent, and it's I believe they were on a consignment listing or a private order at that point with this guy. He was a startup, didn't really have much experience, but he really, was ambitious about getting our product to the market. So we were kind of led by someone with first time experience here too. So can't really remember the name, the company, but we already we start growing sales, but obviously growing a little bit frustrated with them. And they got us into LCBO exclusively. And we saw, possible growth opportunities in other provinces. So eventually, after the frustrations, realized there wasn't enough growth and support, he got a call by another opportunistic agent named AFIC, who contacted him around 2011. And they facilitated our expansion into Western Canada, British Columbia, Alberta, Manitoba, along with growing our sales in Ontario. And we've had a good relationship with them. Now, we do deal exclusively in the off-premise. We're not any on-premise. This is all volume for us. So, and it's now a general listing, of course. So, labeling compliance. So in our experience in these 4 provinces, now I can't really speak to Quebec or Saskatchewan or others, LCBO are the most strictest in their compliance standards. If you do plan to be in multiple markets, always prepare your standards up to your strictest market. And that happens to be LCBO for us. So that way it's likely good for all the other ones if you want to grow into the other provinces. So examples of how strict they are: broken pallet board, you'll get fined 1 board. They require 3M spray between the pallet layers. If that doesn't pass a lift test, you get fined. Any damage to packaging or anything, it's your liability, so you will get penalized. So I recommend, especially when entering, going anywhere, especially smaller entry volume, I'd be taking photos of all your skids and all your packaging before it leaves your dock, just so you have a record of that, because it can end up being a mess. So yeah, it's not something we routinely do because of the volume we're at, but we still face these, and we're try to get our crew all to understand how consequential it can be. So it's not something I like to put on our warehouse, because if you've exported elsewhere, export it's a different set of variables than your regular domestic preparation you're going for. So the least amount of different procedures that I put on our warehouse and production, the better. But I'm sure that's commonplace among most markets. So yeah, it can be, I think, any $50 to $100 per skid, or sometimes if you're out of compliance with that ABV 0.05 deviation your entire batch, your entire shipment can just get destroyed. So be very careful with that. So we used to do 12-ounce bottles and now 16-ounce cans, and there's a whole different set of compliance standards we had to go through. It was like we're back to square one. There's a lot of back and forth with LCBO and these various bureaucracies, the CFIA, and that's all handled by our agent, but it's back and forth with us, and it can be very time consuming. Lots of it. So I recommend getting your labels up to standards for everything. Date coding, there's a lot of different acceptable standards. They'll give you a list. I recommend just choosing one. And if it can jive with all your other exports, the better, because the least amount of variables. Like, so we stick with one. We chose the DDMMYYYY packaged on. Most export markets will want either an extended Best Buy code or your package on. We're going with packaged on because we trust our partners. We trust that they'll rotate thusly. But yeah, just find the strictest standard and make it seamless with all your other provinces. We also found that we have to shrink wrap individual cases now for LCBO. Not all provinces require that. Seems really wasteful for us, but they have an automated inventory system. It's state of the art, and it needs to fit within that, or else, they have troubles. So, um, our our agent recommended that we actually purchase a shrink wrapping machine to do that ourselves. I would recommend not doing that at any volume. I would do your cost benefit analysis on that with outsourcing, because I don't think we would have done that if we would have realized how much of a pain it is to deal with that machine or to train somebody to use it. So, yeah, it's lots and lots of headaches. So yeah, Manitoba requires loose pack shrink wrapped. Ontario requires that they be in the separate 4-pack carriers and then shrink wrapped. It's all different standards. See, heat treated pallets. CHEP pallets are the standard for Canadian. Those are the blue painted ones that you see. Ontario requires them. Other provinces are, some will accept heat treated, some will accept the CHEP blue pallets. We found it's best that you just stick with the CHEP, because they'll all accept the CHEP pallets. That way you won't have to question it and maybe require your warehouse crew to pre-stack pallets. No one likes to do that. I haven't gone through the tender application process, so that was way before me. So I don't really have any recommendation on that. But I have gone through it for Sweden, Finland, Denmark, Norway, because that's also the monopoly system there. And I recommend most producers, if you're just entering a market, people ask me all the time, where should we export? Like, those are the places that are actually best, because that's kind of a fair system. They ask, they just put out a broad, detailed request of, it's got to be this style of beer, this format, this volume, this price, and if you can meet all of the terms, and you just send your samples off to a blind sampling panel. Sometimes they can see the packaging, and then it's more of a fair process. Let's see, any other points here? Sales outcomes and lessons learned. See, compliance is tricky. Pricing and profits are tricky. That's what our owner told me, but I see it's probably because originally we were one of those consignment listings, and well, originally I believe the LCBO was paying us, and then we paid our agent a cut of that. But now we have it where they pay our agent and they pay us a percentage. But either way, it's always very good to get it all spelled out, your percentages of who is taking in your contracts way in advance. Yeah, start out cautiously, with most export markets for deep. You never know, your launch could be all starry-eyed, and then you don't see a repeat sale. So be cautious. See, I touched on everything. Canada has been consistently good for us. I think New Grist at one point was the largest selling American import in Canada overall, and that's as a certified gluten-free product. That's including all beer. I know for sure it's definitely the best-selling gluten-free beer imported in all of Canada. But of course, not right now. We hit the elephant in the room snag earlier this year. For us, that we had 5 purchase orders in the system. They were all kilos. All of our beer on the shelves in Ontario, every single bottle of liquor, we saw the empty shelves. The next day they just wiped it clean, all gone. I mean, thankfully it was all bought and paid for at that point, but we've not had any sales. But as Nigel mentioned before, Alberta has opened back up in June, and that must be because they're private. They're not under the orders of the government. So we have filled. I shipped off to Alberta a container last week, so we're back and we have another PO in the system. And our importer's cautiously optimistic. Importer agent is cautiously optimistic about the future. I mean, we even had new products we had already got approved and ready to launch and everything, and we're still hoping for the best for those. So that was basically a hit of Canadian volume is, from year to year, anywhere from 3 to 5% of our overall sales. That's a significant impact, but in this industry, that can be your variable at any given year to year. So we've been able to shoulder that and try to make up for other areas, expanding the Newgrist in the domestic regions. Hopefully we get back open up there, because it's been quite a bummer for us. We're even looking into, at this point, contracting up there. We've never even considered that in the past, but if we found a producer we're comfortable with that could be certified gluten-free, we consider it, because then it would be a domestic Canadian product and will be subject to all these tariffs. So I think that's everything that you asked me to talk about, unless there's something I didn't talk about enough, or if you have any questions, please let me know.
Great. Okay, so we will move on. I realize, just in respect of everyone's time, we will definitely accept questions in written form afterwards. I also know we probably had some conversation going in the chat. Doesn't look like it. So please feel free to reach out. Our contact information is in the thing, but I'm going to pass it over to Elise to talk about upcoming events. Elise?
Yeah, thank you, Nigel, and thank you, Andrew, for your insights there. I think that was super helpful. In 2025 in Canada, we have one event coming up, a specialty food promotion where we will be attending the Vancouver Meat and Cheese Festival. So this may not be geared to you guys unless you also have meats and cheese. Recruitment for this does end August 29th. So if this does interest you and you want to attend, there is certainly still time to register. In 2026, we will be doing a consumer-oriented inbound mission, as well as attending the National Restaurant Association show. Registration details for this will be posted on our events page on our WSADA website, so please be on the lookout for that. Even though, as we discussed, Canada is challenging right now, we still want to have events in the market to provide our suppliers an opportunity to maintain existing trading relationships and maybe even develop new ones for when eventually the environment is more favorable to Canada again. You can easily start exporting there again. Yeah, those are our Global Connect events. If you have not participated before in our events, we'd love to have you participate. In addition to Canada, just for everyone's reference, we do have other events in other markets such as Japan, South Korea, India, Africa, Europe. So we highly encourage you to look at our events page on our website. And then finally, just as a follow-up to this webinar, tomorrow morning, you will receive an email from me coming from our education@wasada.org email with a link to the recording of this webinar, as well as a link to a survey and to schedule a one-on-one consultation with BCI and WSADA. Please fill out the survey. It's only, I think, 9-10 questions. If you're able to complete that, we'd really appreciate it. We have to report metrics to USDA on our program, and it helps us to secure more funding for our suppliers. So we'd really appreciate it. That's it from me.
Great. Thank you, everybody. We really appreciate you hopping on this morning or afternoon, wherever you are, and have a great day.
Cheers.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.